Here's the script rewritten line by line in very simple, casual English, like friendly gossip. Exactly the same length, no info added or removed, no timestamps, no extra lines, like a big Italian family or a big Spanish family. Yeah, and her grandma was the one who kept everyone together. Richard Gere was known as Hollywood's silver-haired heartbreaker, the guy who turned Pretty Woman into a modern fairy tale and made romance on screen feel brand new. He always looked charming, classy, and totally in control. But now at 76, that perfect image broke. Gere finally told a secret he kept for years. The 5 actresses he truly loved. They were like American angels, so beautiful nobody else even tried to get close. Except him. And when you hear the names, your jaw is gonna drop. First is Julia Roberts, the one who made him totally lose it. She's number 1 on Richard Gere's list, not just because she's super famous, but because she's the only woman who ever made him forget he was acting. Their sparks in Pretty Woman weren't fake or planned by the director. It was all because of her. Julia had this easy way of getting past his walls, and Gere said more than once that being near her felt risky in a way acting never should. The moment that got him happened during a quiet rehearsal, way before filming started. They were sitting at a little restaurant table, practicing the scene and talking about lines, when Julia quietly reached under the table and ran her fingertip across Gere's palm. Slow, soft, on purpose. She said it was her way to build feelings, but it shocked Gere like electricity. He said later, "She did this tiny thing with her fingers, and suddenly it wasn't a scene anymore. It was us." That second made him realize how easily Julia could pull him out of acting and into something real. What made it crazier was how normal she acted about it. She'd laugh, lean in close, touch his arm without thinking, stare right into his eyes, and hold it until he forgot his next line. People on the crew whispered about how strong their connection looked. One cameraman even said he stopped rolling once because it felt like he was spying. Richard loved her sweet innocence mixed with boldness. She used real feelings instead of tricks. She wasn't scary hot like Sharon Stone or quietly intense like Diane Lane. She was warm, open, and super real. And that, Richard said, made her the most dangerous one of all. Even now, he says, if Julia ever asked him to run away for a weekend, he wouldn't ask questions. He'd just go. Next, Sharon Stone, the woman who made danger feel sexy. Richard Gere still remembers the exact second Sharon Stone walked into his life, because his whole body reacted before his brain caught up. No hello, no fake Hollywood chit-chat. Sharon just walked across a crowded room to him, reached up, and slowly brushed imaginary dust off his shoulder. Then she smiled like she had already picked him. That was when he knew he was in big trouble. Gere later said, "Sharon didn't flirt like normal people. She hunted." And he meant it as the biggest compliment. But what really hooked him wasn't only the heat. It was how Sharon worked. On set, she could switch from joking with everyone to super serious in 1 second. She'd laugh with the crew, then step into a scene and act so strong it felt like a fight. Richard once said she could make up a line that went straight to the heart of the moment. I had to stay sharp around her, blink and she'd own the scene. He loved that. Sharon didn't wait for the director. She made her own rules. She wasn't scared to argue with the director, step closer to Gere than the script said, or change the speed if she felt the real truth was hiding. And Gere was crazy about that fearless attitude. One time during rehearsal, Sharon suddenly grabbed his wrist while he was talking and whispered, "Don't act, react." It wasn't in the script at all, but it woke him up. That one line taught him more about being real on camera than any teacher ever did. She shocked his whole system, both as an actor and as a man, and that mix made her impossible to forget. Next, Diane Lane, the quiet flame he almost crossed the line with. What happens when 2 actors like Richard Gere and Diane Lane do a scene so close and personal that even the director isn't sure it's still acting? People have wondered that for years, and Gere never denied the reason. Diane didn't start fire like Sharon Stone. She didn't push or fight. Instead, she gently pulled Richard into her world with a softness that felt even more dangerous. Diane could listen in a way that made every word he said feel heavier. Gere said she could change the whole mood of a scene with just one breath. The moment that changed everything was while shooting Unfaithful. In rehearsal, Diane was supposed to say a simple line about feeling guilty. Instead, she slowed down, stepped a tiny bit closer, rested her forehead lightly against his, and whispered, "Don't answer yet. Let it hurt first." Richard froze. No actress had ever used quiet like that on him before. That was Diane's special thing. She acted from real pain, not from tricks. He later said, "Diane makes you act with your real truth, not just your skill." For an inexperienced guy like Gere, that was exciting and scary. She'd hold eye contact a little too long, breathe at the same time as him, or match her voice to how he was feeling. Those small, perfect choices made Richard feel truly seen on set for the first time. There was one take where Diane's voice actually cracked for real, not planned. Instead of stopping, Gere reached for her hand. Diane let the real feeling stay. For a few seconds, they weren't acting. They were just there together. That's the kind of deep connection Richard has always looked for. That's why Diane Lane still has a special place in his heart that he can't even fully explain. Next, Michelle Pfeiffer, the woman who completely disarmed him without even touching him. Richard Gere never thought Michelle Pfeiffer would affect him this much. Her power was way more scary. She didn't need to touch him to make him feel totally exposed. That alone put her fourth on his list, because the feelings she created came from mystery. The moment he fell hard happened at a casting meeting in the late 80s. Michelle walked in, sat across from Gere, put her hands together, and just stared at him with super focused attention that made him forget why he was even there. 10 whole seconds went by. No smile, no small talk, just eyes that felt like they already knew all his secrets. Gere later said, "Michelle didn't have to speak. I felt like she already saw right through me." No other actress ever did that to him. Her way of working was even more intense. Michelle was perfect, almost scary perfect. She didn't practice to remember lines. She practiced to cut away anything fake until only truth was left. When she walked into a scene, she went straight through you, calm, classy, like surgery. One time in a test scene, Gere tried to add an emotional moment. Michelle didn't give a planned answer. She took a sharp breath, let her voice really shake, and whispered, "Don't lie to me. Not here." It wasn't in the script, and it hit Richard harder than any touch ever could. He loved that control. How her holding back made every tiny move huge. How her quiet pulled him in instead of pushing. Gere once said to friends, "With Michelle, you don't want her body, you want to reach her soul." And that made her impossible to forget. Last, Sophia Loren, the dream he never got over. Richard didn't put Sophia Loren on the list because of sparks or risky moments like the others. He put her there because she's the only woman who made him feel something he hadn't felt since he was a kid. Pure awe. The moment that hooked him happened long before they ever worked together or even talked on a job. It was at a fancy awards show in Europe in the late 80s. Sophia walked up to him with that natural Italian elegance, gently put her hand on his cheek like a mom, but in a way that destroyed him, and said, "You look too serious for a man with eyes like yours." Richard couldn't talk. He laughed about it later, but right then he was stuck. A grown movie star turned back into a shy teenager in front of a legend. But the thing that made him fall forever wasn't just that touch. It was how Sophia acted on set. She never forced anything or overacted. She just stood still and made everyone else step up to her level of truth. At a masterclass they both went to, Sophia told the young actors, "If you don't live with your heart wide open, the camera will know." Richard never forgot those words. He says that one sentence changed how he shows real feelings on screen. Sophia's presence felt like gravity to him. She made him want to stand taller, act better, be more honest. Gere once told close friends, "I never wanted Sophia the way I wanted the others. I wanted to be good enough for her." And that feeling, more than heat or romance, is why she's still the dream he never outgrew. So now that Richard Gere finally told us the 5 actresses he loved the most, which name surprised you the most? And do you think any of them felt the same way about him? Tell us in the comments. We really want to know what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next juicy Hollywood story.